Hello, everybody. Hello, ladies. I'm so glad that I'm not alone in the circle. I'm seeing a few of you that I know. Welcome to the Women's Wisdom Circle, and this is our second circle. And just as an introduction, before I do a small connection exercise amongst ourselves, I wanted just to kind of give the context of where this started and what we have talked on the first one, since two of you were not present. And basically, the idea emerged out of an experience I had in Pakistan and what happened in January in France with the terrorist attack. And I felt called to do something, and I felt so helpless because not knowing what to do. You want to do something and you don't know what to do. And in a conversation with Harriet, two conversations actually with Harriet, I thought, well, let's explore a women's circle and let's explore the space of co-creation. And that means what is emerging when we come together, rather than coming from, I know what to do and I have all the answers, which I don't, and see what emerges in the context of a heart connection. And basically, what transpired, I have just listened to taken a few notes and just want to bring it back to the context before I do the connection exercise. It's like to explore the need to balance the heart and mind. And Bridget was talking, she's not here, she's in New Zealand, and it's 6 in the morning, it's a bit early for her. She was talking about coming from the creative orientation. What can emerge, what possibilities can emerge when you come from giving up the shoulds and the must? And what can emerge out of following and pursuing what you really want in a space of sustainability? And the possibilities that can emerge that nobody has any clue about. So that's part of what the conversation was about in our first hangout. Dion was, which is not here also today, was talking about radical self-care and how to make the shift from the energy that has run the world for so many millennia, really, the mind control that we've been all subjected to, into the heart. Michelle, which is not here also today, was talking about how she was sharing about how much she has been really living all her life under the control of other people until 56, when she broke free, and now she is in the process of building a spiritual community, an online, actually, spiritual community. And Harriet, who did our connection exercise last time and is present today, talked about the wounded feminine essence in both men and women. And how the ones who have done the healing work, and we all have been on the healing journey, I know all of you individually, we are really here now to explore, to search and explore the space of co-creation and what can emerge from that space, rather than from I know it, I have the answers, which is very much the mind and the ego and the perception that my way is the best way. So we need to shift into another space and really learn to create amongst ourselves a sacred space and a space of vulnerability where we come together and see what emerges in that space. So in that context, I just invite you to virtually hold hands. Just imagine we are in a circle, in a physical circle, and to close your eyes for a few moments. I will do the same. And just imagine that we are holding hands, and imagine that we are deeply connected to the earth, grounded to the feet, some deep roots connecting us to the center of the earth. Just taking a moment to imagine that connection and to make that connection. And then with the breath, allowing the breath to bring in that energy from the earth to have it move into your body, fill you. Feet, legs, belly, buttocks, torso, back, shoulders, arms and hands, head. And imagine that energy now shooting out to the top of your head and connecting to the other point of connection, the cosmic energies, our connection to the universal life force. And imagine that energy shining down to the top of your head, moving down, a source of light really, illuminating every cell in your body and filling your body from top to bottom. Taking a moment to imagine that connection and seeing yourself as an individual cell of the planet and of the universe, like an antenna grounded to the earth and connected to the stars. And allow that energy to come together in your heart. And from the heart space, just connect to what is present for you, for each of you, wherever you are in the world. And in the imaginary circle, we could actually send that energy now out to the right hand, around the circle, and receive the energy from the other one to the left hand. Just creating that circular energy and allowing that flow, feel that flow, that connection. Taking one more moment to see what emerges for you out of this connection. Taking another deep breath. And now releasing that vision and coming back to your space of normal consciousness, staying connected virtually. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes. And would like to invite Heidi, since you were not present the first one, if you want to perhaps introduce yourself or whatever is present for you, if you want to share that with the circle.
Yeah, I am Heidi and I'm in Italy, and I come today for the first time. I am very much interested in this feminine thing because I had sort of this similar experience that was about 5 years ago. I really could break out finally out of these old patterns by doing very deep work, feminine power work. And so my passion is to bring it out into the world, but not only to women, because I see most of that is also applicable for men. And it has many of these meditations as you did, it's very useful to get connected with both of the, how you say, extremes, Earth and universe, and I like it. Thank you for leading that. It was very nice, and I will see what I can contribute to the circle. If I can be here all the time, I don't know, because Wednesdays, from next Wednesday on, we have the Wisdom Factory transmissions, and at that time, so if it stays this time, I wouldn't be able to come.
Okay, it's not sure that it's going to be the time. I think I will be changing probably to make it available. Some people from New Zealand couldn't make it, so we might change the day and the time. Also,
Okay.
what I want to just highlight from what I've heard is, yes, definitely, this is not just for women, and I'm sure there is wisdom, there's feminine wisdom in men. And for now, this is just the way it started, but that does not mean it is exclusive. Actually, one thing that, yes, Annie, you wanted to add?
Yeah, another thing I wanted to add, you said before we have to recreate or how did you say, to develop the vulnerability and be able not to know everything well. I think this is exactly the feminine qualities, to be comfortable within the unknown. We always have the possibility to just put on the sleeves and go when things are needed, and we don't need to think about it a long time, as this is more a masculine quality, you know, to figure it out and do it. So I think what we need to do maybe is rediscover it, but it's innate in us to handle in the unknown, let's say. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Heidi. Perhaps I'd like to also invite Aline to introduce yourself, since you were not present also last, our first hangout. And
Yeah, thank you, Aileen. Thank you, Aline. I'm Aileen Boundy. I'm from the UK, and I was introduced to the Aline that you all know through Dion, who's not on today, but who is I've known for a couple of years now, also just online on the internet. It's really just strange for me to have another person with the same name and the same spelling, because it's quite a rare spelling, certainly for England. I'm in the UK, and I know Aline is in France at the moment, anyhow. And I love that meditation. It's very like one that I do sometimes to connect people around the globe, and I'm in the process of setting up a call like that, so I can do these kinds of global healing the earth meditations, which will be, will be available for anyone to join in who wants to do it. But it was so many similarities, joining hands and feeling the energy and all of that. I was a teacher for a long time, and now I left teaching a couple of years ago. I taught in the UK. I lived in Greece for over 20 years and taught there in an international school. And I came back to the UK about 5 years ago, and I'm now online and working out. I'm a bit like many other people, I think, working my way online and how to do it and what to do. I have a business called Align With Your Purpose, which is what I feel passionate about helping people to get clear about what their purpose is and how they can live it. Because I have this idea that if people were living what their divine purpose is on this planet, then the planet would be a healthier place, and we have a situation where people were happier in their lives, and if one person is happy, that ripples out, to affect the others. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, and I could talk a lot longer, but that'll do for an introduction. And thank you for inviting me on here, and I look forward to seeing how I can contribute.
Thank you, Aline. Thank you very much. Yes, I've only met Aline this week. I think we talked quite a long time, right? Or last week, late last week, yes. Thank you. And whoever would like to chime in now, please. This is not about me always inviting you, so whoever feels called, maybe I go down the line if that's easier. Deborah? But Deborah is muted. That's great, okay. And I invite whoever doesn't speak maybe to mute yourself so there is no interference.
So, well, thank you, Elaine, for inviting me to rejoin the group. And I am just really looking at how I can take my projects and my work and infuse light and love in.
Just froze for a moment, Deborah. I cannot hear you anymore.
That I have to consider. I work with a difficult issue, and so I have to bring light and love into that work, and to be able to be uplifting to the people that I'm working with, as well as bring healing into the process. And as we're looking at shifting a malfunctioning system, it requires a lot of light in that process. So just having other women to connect with and other individuals that are tuned in, I think will be very helpful in co-creating something that makes a difference in many, many people's lives.
Do you want to share with Heidi and Aline what the project is that you're working on? Because they were not, I don't know whether they have listened to the replay. You're working with domestic violence, right? And perhaps you want to share what your bigger vision is about that.
Right. Well, I'm working in the area of improving how the family courts work with interpersonal violence and the impacts on children, and helping the courts to really understand how their decisions actually have lifelong excuse me, impacts on the children and the effects on what goes on in their lives. So it's really very important to me that we shed a lot of light on what's happening, because we're creating multiple generations of children who are then repeating what they've learned in their families unless we break through that. So it really is some cutting-edge work, as well as bringing people who have been in a place of misunderstanding to a place of understanding. And it's interesting that yesterday I was talking with another woman who's part of a peace meditation group that I'm in, and I asked her, I said, when you think of the words domestic violence, what do you think of? And her response was pretty much what I expected. It's physical violence. And I said, well, what about the other types of violence? And then she thought about emotional violence, emotional abuse. And it's even bigger than that. So it's really getting people to see the multiple types of abuse and how we need to interrupt that cycle, and how we need to shift it to a cycle of nurturing and caring and stability in families.
And I have always been inspired, because you're also working with judges and attorneys in the court system to educate them about this edge knowledge, really, that a lot of psychologists perhaps know about, and maybe not a lot, but you have really identified how the pattern translates even in the court system, and how not having informed professionals will even perpetuate a system that is creating the issues and perpetuating the issues, not only within the family system, but really within the system that rules on children when there is a domestic violence issue.
Yes, that's correct. And so it's going to take a big shift. And in some places, I think that we are reaching a tipping point, and in other places, we still have more work that needs to be done to help shift that mindset and to help people understand not only what happens to children in the short term, but what happens to them lifelong. And how all of your work, Aline, and the rest of the women in the group, how all of you can be uplifting to those people who have been through that and want to shift it and want to make that change.
Thank you, Deborah. I don't know if anybody wants to react to what Deborah said or want to contribute whatever comes up for you. Harriet, would you want to?
Yes, this is an interesting topic for me. How are we liberating these patterns? And I have worked a lot also to recognize those patterns inside myself, and also with working on what is the feminine essence in leadership, and what kind of leadership do we need to bring out this feminine essence. I learned last year when exploring this topic that how subtle the domination of the masculine energy is, and then I talk, really of the woman being able to really, express her feminine, to do that shift in herself, so she's radiating this feminine essence, which is affecting the men and the masculine energy in a very positive way. And how sometimes I'm succeeding if the environment is very positive, but if I'm in a very kind of traditional environment, how easily I fall back into the pattern, to the old pattern. So I was, and I have not been innocent with that subtle abuse myself, because that's the wounded feminine who needs to manipulate and to believe, to get her ideas through. So I know this is what just came up for me now, that how challenging this topic is, but we still, I continue to work on it. But it's interesting to see how deep these, what you mentioned, Aline, in the beginning, about how long the feminine power has been suppressed. So we have to really be very, very aware.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is thousands of years, really. That and just to bring it back to what I kind of identified, the masculine really being the mind. And the mind is, when the mind is dominant, it rules over the heart. Mm-hmm. And what we need to bring into balance is the mind listening to the heart rather than the mind suppressing the heart, And yes, it has manifested in an imbalance between relationships, between men and women, the patriarchal kind of systems, the domination cultures, really. We all come from domination cultures, in the West and in the Middle East and in the East. I've lived in those countries, so I have first-hand experience. And the domination model is a model that has ruled the world. Domination of the woman, but domination also of cultures. This is the. I know my daughter has those conversations with me all the time, of the white man ruling, the colonialism model, where we have colonized. You know, it's the same system. It really is everywhere, and that system is in need of changing. It's actually not sustainable, really, in the long run. You know.
No, it's not. It's not, and this is what we see now. So this work, really, what we are doing, is very, very much needed, as we all know. So
Can I-
therefore, I find it very valuable to be supported by all of you.
Can I say something?
Yes, Heidi? Go ahead.
You were talking about that the feminine energy is oppressed or suppressed, and this is in some way true. But I think we have sort of co-created this all, also in the past, also patriarchy, and we have our energy. Feminine energy is there, but unfortunately, it has taken unhealthy ways of expressing itself. You know, and what you were talking about, this manipulation thing. Women got out their power by, you know, finding the way to get others to do what they want, which is not really good. And I think it's one of the things we really have to look at and to have to give up, to not only give the men the patriarchy and everything, the guilt of it, because I don't believe that men have suppressed the women. I do believe that there was a need in history so that it was a co-creation, because otherwise, you know, we would be sheep if half of the population would be completely suppressed. We had our benefit of being in this role, and you know, so it was accepted. But it's now the time where this doesn't work anymore. So this is good that we are changing it. But I'm only wanting to say that it's not to be complaining about and giving guilt. There is no guilt, you know. So.
Yes, it's a stage in the evolution of humanity.
Absolutely.
We are evolving. We are reaching a level of conscious evolution, and conscious evolution requires us to reassess the models under which we have done relationships in the past. And that's really what is emerging, you know, that responsibility, taking responsibility for the way it was, given the economic situations was also such that that was the way for a long time. We had roles just for the survival of the species. We had to play our role. There was just, we didn't have that evolution where we kind of have self-reflection about what we do. You know, we were just like trying to survive the best we could, men and women, you know.
Yes.
And I see that Sandra has joined us. Sandra, do you want to make your voice heard?
Yes. Well, my work has been largely with children in the school system. There's another teacher here. And it has been about using a hearts and minds approach in education. And we were very successful with this. And so I'm presently I'm in the process of getting ready to launch the second edition of my book, Hearts and Minds: A Public School Miracle, later on this summer. And in addition to that, my training with school principals and other leaders, I'm keeping it, you know, small at this point. So people dealing with children, so community leaders, group leaders dealing with children, is about a 21st century approach to leadership. And my take on that is a 21st century leader is a leader who leads with the heart and the mind, is a leader who embodies the feminine as well as the masculine aspects, because we know that both are equally needed. One of the things, I mean, I was very fortunate to be raised in a family where my father told me I could do anything I wanted to do and he would always be there to support me. And my mother-in-law was widowed when my husband was 6 months old, and she basically, with very little education, started up a business and ran a business and put her children through school, her 5 children. My great-grandmother came from India to Trinidad as a migrant worker after her husband died, and she didn't want to go through being a widow in India at that point. Was not the best of circumstances in those times. And when her uncle was going to try his hand at this new country where they're asking for immigrant laborers after slavery was abolished, she asked him to take her with him, and she went. And she raised her 5 grandsons there. So I'm from a group of women who just took it upon themselves to do what they had to do, and they were very successful with it. So, so when we talk about the patriarchy, and I've raised my sons that way, so I feel very sensitive when people make comments about the masculine and men and don't balance it. You know what I mean? Part of your discussion just now was we're co-creators of that, and you know, there is a need for balance. So I'm glad that I heard that in the conversation. And certainly leadership, what we know of both aspects of the masculine and feminine are necessary. So anyway, so that's my thing. My work with children, hearts and minds, and my continued work was bringing out 21st century leaders who will uplift humanity.
Thank you, Sandra. Yeah, I know we had many times a conversation whenever I raised the term patriarchy. You always kind of had to bring your balanced perspective into the equation, and you know, hearing your background, I can understand how you wouldn't have that experience, that first-hand experience that some other women have had. And it was interesting today, actually, I heard at the news, because I'm in France, and it's the 29th of April today, yes, they said today is the 70th birthday of the vote of women to vote in France. So this is much later than in some other countries in the West, and this is just a few years older than me. You know, I was born a few years after that, so I'm not 70 yet, but I'm reaching there somehow. You know, so the fact that this country has been under a kind of a model where women didn't have their say in an official way for much longer than some other countries like Canada or the US, was much earlier, or UK, even in the UK, has created a different experience. And you know, my personal family experience is not yours, you know. So I can understand both ways, and I am living most of my the last 18 years in Saudi Arabia, where for sure it's still very much a domination culture in place. So it's both, really. Every perspective could be different. Who would like to react to that or bring something else to the space?
Now, I must say I would like to relate to our previous material, what you sent out. I'm happy, Aline, that you sent out that. What resonates in me is when we wrote about modeling heart-based behavior and kind of help, you know, seeing that what kind of actions come out of when the heart is leading the way. So what you said in the beginning, and for me that has lived strongly in me since our last call.
Do you want to share how it has impacted you? And when you said it has lived strongly in you, can you give us some
Yeah,
more?
it brought to my awareness that, yeah, modeling it is in a nice way to say that, you know, that because we become aware that when the mind takes over and you forget to listen to your heart, and when what types of behavior, so also taking off that I don't know, pressure, it's not a pressure maybe, but that we are searching together for a new way of relating, like you said in the beginning, also looking what is emerging here and not imposing our strong beliefs, but just sensing very strongly and really having the courage to express what feels right in the heart from the truth of what is in every one of us, because we all come from different backgrounds, and this we're also from different cultures. So although we share a lot, but we also have many differences, like you pointed out.
And you're in Finland, right, Hayat?
Yeah, I'm in Finland, and we have seen here, for example, an interesting trend now. We used to have many, well, I think we were among the first in the world where women were given the right to vote, but it was interesting for me to learn that actually it had a practical reason, because the women were given votes when Finland was getting independent as a state in 1918. And it was practical then for some political reasons. So maybe, you know, it might not have been, but okay, women in Finland are strong. But lately we have seen a trend that in politics and in economy, suddenly all the women on the top level in politics, for example, they have disappeared now because of the hard times, the economy is in crisis. Then women are put away. And this is interesting just to discuss and see that aha, what does this tell? So we don't trust that the wisdom that women have the wisdom to solve an economic crisis or a political crisis. Let's say we had a submarine outside Helsinki a couple of days ago, so we have some really tense situations here with our neighbor country. And I met the Ministry of Defense before Christmas, and I told him that my view is that we will not solve the issue with war in the world if we are not doing the forgiveness work and reconciliation and the healing of the past wounds of the last wars. It's no use, otherwise we're just creating new wars, and that's what we are doing at the moment.
Yes, tit for tat. Yes, so how could you model forgiveness work?
Well, I did actually practically a couple of weeks ago. I went to St. Petersburg, and I have done a lot of forgiveness work for my family from the war, the winter war in Finland, when my grandfather died and left my grandmother alone with 3 small children. And actually 13 young men from a really small village died in the same attack. And actually nobody had the possibility to do the grieving work and the forgiveness work. So it was my task as the grandchild to do. And I felt when I visited St. Petersburg now that, okay, now I brought there my forgiveness to the Russians. And it felt really like revealing, and I have done a lot of work with that. And my mother was not capable of doing it. She died in a heart attack 3 years ago, not being able to forgive what happened in that war.
Yes, and you're bringing up a very important element here, that in the present moment we can change the past and the future. If more people can acquire this awareness. This is really the new physics talks about that. I've heard that so many times. That you can change the past and create a different future in the moment. So, you know, I am certainly not an expert on the topic of quantum physics, but I keep on reading about these things because it fascinates me so much. And that has been part of a healing journey that I've been on to educate myself about all this edge knowledge that has helped me really do some healing work on myself. When I learn about things that I was holding in a belief system that whatever you are taught, you're stuck with, you know. We had this notion for quite a number of years that, oh well, I was born in such and such a family and such and such a life experience is, well, I'm just kind of, that's just the way it is. And then it was not that long ago, I mean, 2 years ago, I think it was 2008 or 9, when I read Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief. I don't know if you're familiar with that material, but that totally radically changed my perspective from I'm stuck, just like I've been educated, you know, in the school system that you certain numbers of things, your brain, another one of those outdated beliefs. Okay, your brain grows until you're 20, and after that it ages. Well, the new discoveries now in neuroscience really shows quite the contrary, that you can keep on regenerating and creating new neurological connections. So you're really not limited. You're only limited by the limiting beliefs that you choose to believe. So I don't know if some of you would like to add to that topic, because that is really what it's all about. The transformation that is required if we can allow new possibilities to emerge and not think that we are stuck by the way things were. Aline.
Yeah, hi, thank you. That's really, I'm fascinated by all this stuff too, and just learning it myself. But I've recently been working with someone who had many new. He opened up my perception to many new ways of looking at things, and one of the main ones was, and I think it's relevant to what you've just been saying, is that it's this idea of the intergenerational. The power of the intergenerational stuff, and he said that that we are born so that we can deal with things that our parents could not, and what Harriet was just sharing there is a perfect example of that. That 2 generations back, there was this family tragedy, I suppose, and her own mother was not able to deal with it. And it's fallen to her to now go in and deal with that, and that will have cleared it in a sense for the generations past and the generations to come. And I think that's for me. It's still quite a new concept. This idea of that. I mean, we know that we are genetically connected through the generations, and I've read some Bruce Lipton stuff as well. I have to admit I struggled with the biology of belief with some of the concepts, but I've read some of his other works as well, and I've also watched quite a few videos on YouTube where he talks in a sort of maybe a bit of a watered down way. It's a little bit easier to take in, and it's just fascinating the stuff that he kind of turns genetics on its head. It's not all. It's not genetics. It's to do with the environment, and it's to do with yes, there are some parts of the cell which obviously come through, but the what's it called, epigenetics is the new way of looking at it, and it's just, I find it absolutely fascinating, and it all links in with a lot of what you've been saying about how we are. For me, it's about perceiving the power that we each have individually to make these shifts, to deal with this stuff that has been in our family, let's say, for goodness knows how long, and to, when they come up, when these issues come up, to actually not to stuff them away and, you know, push them down and, oh, I can't deal with that, or, you know, it's too difficult, but actually to see it as I'm starting to see stuff as an opportunity that's been brought to me, because it will just come back. It comes back again and again and again until it's dealt with. And I'm sorry that I went a bit off track there, but that's where the conversation took me. But I am fascinated by the whole all those ideas about the genetics and epigenetics and the multi-generational thing as well. And I know you were talking more about limiting beliefs there, but it's the same kind of principle, Eileen, that you know, these things keep coming up, and if we don't actually deal with them, they'll just show up in a different form as some kind of a block. And as you say, it's a belief. It's something that we have. It's a belief that we acquired. We didn't necessarily choose to have it. We acquired it as a small child, as a child who was just, you know, taking in everything that was around them in an attempt to make sense of the world. And we've been, you know, here I am. I'm almost 60, you know, and here I am getting towards it, and I'm still functioning on these beliefs that I took in when I was maybe 6 years old. I don't know, 5, 4. And it's time to really examine them and be able to move beyond them, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And you know what is triggered for me when I hear you, Aline? Last night I was watching I think it's a teleseries, and there were actually 2 programs. There was a program on World War II, which was quite well made, and I learned a few things, because you have this knowledge, all of us, you know, about World War II, but then when you see the details, you see the magnitude of what it was, and this is really where I come from, you know. I mean, this is my whole childhood. I heard war stories from World War II. My father was there, all my uncles, we lost family members and all that, you know, so I grew up in that thing. And then there was a teleseries that they were talking about 3 young ladies in the 70s. And suddenly, when I saw the teleseries, it was like it was putting me back when I grew up in France in 68. I left France in 69, really. And it put me back in that context, and I suddenly kind of understood why I left. It was like, it was a period, an emergence, but there was something new, and women had not really had the emancipation. And for me, it was like so stifling. It was like, no way. I was running away. I really ran away. It was like, for the sake of finding myself and finding the freedom that I knew was there. You know, it's like I always had that connection that there's more than, you know, I could not just accept that my life would be the way it was for my parents or whatever. And there, you know, I had my mother's program who kept on telling me, do not do like I did, you know. So it was like an anti-model. I had an anti-model as a model, you know, telling me, do something else. But she didn't know what, you know. But I certainly listened to that one, and I left, you know. So now, you know, I was meeting my sister today, and it was like, you know, you don't think about the consequences when you make this decision and you leave, because it has consequences. You know, my family come here, and I'm a global citizen now. I live on 3 continents, and you know, where do I have my roots? In the earth and in the stars. That's what I say, you know, because I can only relate to that now. I have just connections to so many different cultures, but not really anymore to one specific one. So, you know, it has its pros and it has its cons, but would I choose differently if I had to make it again? I don't think so. You know, this was like my destiny, I guess. You know.
I just wanted to say something, Harriet. I really admire what you did by going there. I'm not sure exactly what you did or how you did that with the forgiveness.
Well, practically, I just had it in my heart, the
Okay.
intention, and I would like to relate to what Deborah said also about we are needing a lot of light. So I am sending light and love to that nation, you know,
Oh, okay.
and I don't know whether that, you know, had an impact or not. How can I cannot measure it, but I had the intention in my heart that.
Yeah.
And I really, with the people I connected there, it was. I mean, when you are a tourist for a couple of days, you don't get to talk to many people. But you know, in some souvenir shops, and I had some really nice, you know, encountering some positive, and we were saying, "Hey, we are neighbors. You know, nice to meet you." And then I wrote afterwards that we need to meet and have a dialogue if we want to change things. And all these small encounters even can make a small difference when you have that intention in the heart and with the power of heart. I don't know, what is your opinion? This is just what I intuitively tried to do.
I just found it really admirable that you would make that kind of effort, because it reminded me that my mother had a situation where there was someone she couldn't forgive. And no, I saw that person in a whole different light, because obviously my experiences were different. It was a family member, and she died not being able to let that go. And I always look at that and think how sad it is that she was not able to let that go. And of course, I didn't have the skills to help her at the time. So I just found that whole thing very admirable. So thank you for doing that, because it certainly lifts the energy of the world, right?
I would
Yes,
like to.
if I may add something. Oh, Heidi, you wanted to say something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of try to make a little bit of a connection, if I get that together, because forgiveness and memory and belief systems, they are so near together. You know, when we are, we need a belief system to grow up, because otherwise we cannot. So it is dependent if this is a very functional or dysfunctional belief system, how we can go through the world. But it's always good to look at the belief systems and see if they are still serving us or not. And I think it's one of the most difficult things to teach people, that they can lose the belief system. They can go in, they have the power to decide differently. And this is with not being able to forgive. It's exactly that people don't believe that they have the power to change, that they are so identified with what has happened that they lose the direction to the future, because the future seems to be a consequence of the past, but actually it's not. But what I think then, what we women with this consciousness can do is really not so much activity, but inspire people and make them, you know, I don't want to say make them believe, but inspire them to tap into their power and to believe in change. To believe in that things can be changed, and that they really have the possibility to change their own life, whatever happens outside, because many of the events you cannot change. The past you cannot change, and even many of the things which come to you in the future, like an earthquake, it's not that you can change that. But what you can change is how you live it, how your attitude is towards these things. And I think we haven't really understood it yet as humanity, that we have this power to change our attitude.
Yes, we can really change the story that we have
Definitely.
lived by, you know.
Mhm.
And the other thing I wanted to say, and then Deborah, I know you want to say something, but when I was hearing Hayek, you know, and sending energy and love, really, we are connected. This consciousness we are consciousness before anything else. And through our thought and our intentions, you know, this is again the heart and the mind, you know, intention is really what emerges. We can send that energy and it has an impact around you. I mean, we've all experienced it. Somebody walks in the room with, you know, very angry. Well, we feel it in our body. Somebody walks in very happy. We feel it in our body because the energy field around that person affects us. Now, this energy field, again, this is that edge knowledge, has ripple effects until the end of the world and the end of the universe, probably, from what I'm reading and hearing. So we are, by changing ourselves, and this is what Dion was talking about, radical self-care, taking care of ourselves and doing that, the stuff that we would like to see done everywhere else ourselves will have an impact everywhere else. In the family system, in the community, in the world. It's, you know, I think they call it the butterfly effect.
Right.
Deborah, you wanted to say something?
Well, you're definitely, as far as I'm concerned, right on track, Aline. And one of the things that I can see is if we empower people to work through the trauma, whether it's personal trauma or the trauma that the community has felt, and recover from that trauma, we then have a chance to recreate the kind of lives that we want, rather than to stay stuck in those old belief systems. And that's one of the things that I try to help people look at, is how can I look at this from a different point of view?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Heidi just sent me a little, how long did I schedule the meeting? So it's an hour and a half I scheduled it. But, you know, it doesn't have to go an hour and a half. Whenever we feel we are complete for the day, we can say that's it, you know. We've been talking close to an hour now from the time we started the broadcast.
I would like to add something to that. I think we can look relatively easy from another perspective, but we sort of undervalue the habit in our brains, the neuronal pathways, so that we are always falling back. And there are emerging now techniques with which you can interrupt that, with which you can how to say, create new pathways. And it's not only a decision, I want to be different, but it's really a exercise you need to do on a different level, you know. And so far we have looked at the things and we have tried to see it in a different perspective, but the practice is to really change the mind, let's say, still have been very scarce. And I met a person lately and he has extremely interesting practices to offer, and he will be on our Wisdom Factory in 2 weeks. And I invite you all to come and listen to that, what he is offering. He did with us 3 or 4 practices. I did 2, Mark did 4. And it's extreme, even, you know, body pain situations, they go away by these things. It's incredible. So just to say that the goodwill alone is not enough. We really need to do different ways of practicing these things, which we don't have a direct, how to say, a direct possibility to change these things in here, you know. So need to find ways.
Thank you. Thank you, Heidi. I would like to ask Aline to intervene. Didn't you say, Aline, to me that you're doing EFT? And isn't EFT something that is directly
Yeah, it does. I have just recently qualified in EFT, and it can work on physical pain and emotional. I mean, EFT is emotional freedom technique, and it's a very effective way to quickly take the emotional charge out of any kind of situation. But it works on all sorts of things, yes, as I'm finding.
Yeah, because really that is also what emerged. I think it was Dion last time who mentioned that it's about really sharing with other people what is working and what can help the healing journey and the reconnection to the heart rather than.
I do like EFT, and I also like ERT, which I practice regularly, but EFT not. But this is working on the energy system, and that's fine, you know. But I was talking about it's working on the mind. It's working on the brain. It's on the brain waves. So it's.
Okay.
We need all. We don't need only one. We need all the practices. Yeah.
Is there a name for that system? The one with the brain?
Yeah, he has different names. One of the practice is called what we will present, the gold key release, and the other is called the wish fulfilling gem. He has several names for these. Okay. And this is guided practices he does, and he has a website, and he offers most of these things for free. It's just amazing. He is so passionate about that.
What's his name, Heidi?
Lawrence Gold. I write it down here.
Okay, thank you.
You can go in our. Oh God, I write wrong. Lawrence Gold. And if you go in plus the Wisdom Factory, he has done with us already 2 sessions, and he is explaining these things. You find it there, and on even on YouTube channel, the Wisdom Factory, you find that there. It's really amazing, and when I got in contact with it, I immediately put it into we have this next series is called Wisdom Technologies, and I understood this is a wisdom technology. Really great.
Thank you, Heidi. I'm just sending a message. What is your availability for next meeting? If you could all kind of put whenever you have availability, so that I can see if we can find a time where we can convene. And do we want to do this on a weekly basis or bi-weekly, bi-monthly basis? This is another question. I'm just putting it out there. You know.
How long is it now, Aline? Was it 2 weeks ago we had the first one?
Yes, because I was not available to do it before because I was shifting from Canada to France. So it was a few things going on for me at the time. I couldn't have it. Yes, well, I don't know how.
Suggest Doodle. It's very easy. You go to doodle.com and they tell you how to do this. It's really easy. And it's the best thing.
Can you
suggest times? Not really. It's your thing. You know. You create when you have time, and then several possibilities, and you send it out, and then people see when they have time too, and then you find it's immediately visible when most people can, and it's a very good tool.
Okay, I will make the effort. When I had the information about last time from Bridget suggested it, I looked at it, and at the time, the day before I left Canada, that's about 10 days ago now, my computer crashed. I had to get a new computer, and I'm now learning to use Windows 8. And,
I sympathize.
and a new word kind of system. So every time I touch my screen, I have apps opening up, and it's like, what do I do now? What I know, you know. So I could not deal with another learning something at the time, you know. So I will definitely look into it now. Okay.
I can't usually do this time, as I told you when we spoke. I'm usually at a choir practice, but it happened not to be on tonight. So,
but which other days would you be? Just give me that information. So I look, because I have pretty much, you know, I am don't have that many commitments at that point. Just give me the days. I know, Heidi, you said you're not available on Wednesdays, right?
No,
Are we doing
this
this?
time.
Sorry?
Are we
Thursday.
doing this now? Are we deciding the date now?
Not, but I'm asking when people are available, so I could take that into account.
And
And
did I
perhaps-
miss this? Did you say every 2 weeks? I'm not sure if I missed it or not.
Okay, let me just kind of just as a to wrap up the live broadcast, and we can do this off the live broadcast.
Right.
Do you just want to say something to conclude? Each of you say something, and then we can just say goodbye for now, and then I'll stop the broadcast, and then we can do this. The information about the time, etc. We can talk about that rather than put it on the recording. So maybe just to say thank you for having shown up. It's a
Thank you, Aline, for starting it and for inviting me. I've really enjoyed listening to everybody and getting a sense of, you know, where you all are and what the possibilities are here. Really, it's. I guess it will be quite similar for a while, and then something will start, something will, you know, be created and move forward, and that's the exciting part. But it feels really nice, a really lovely space. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really what emerged last time. You know, when we actually decided to put it public rather than keeping it closed. You know, this is something that Bridget kind of shared. You know, open it up and then see what it emerges, rather than, you know, trying to hide amongst ourselves and making this like our thing. You know, some other people might join at one point, and not everybody will always be joining, because there are some people in New Zealand and there are some people in Australia, and the lady in Australia hasn't made it. So at one point I will have to different times of the day so that we could have the range of people joining. Thank you, Aline, for coming. I appreciate that. All right, so if somebody else wants to say something before I stop the broadcast, it's time to do it. Otherwise, I'll just say goodbye and until next time.